The DNA test results came out. I was switched at birth with a boy 20 years ago. My current parents are real estate tycoons. When they found out their actual child was a son, they tearfully hugged me and pleaded, "Sweetheart, don't go back, okay? We can't bear to let you go." Meanwhile, my biological parents are leaders in the jewelry industry. Overcome with joy upon discovering their child was actually a daughter, they wept and couldn't wait to bring me home. Heavens! How could we have missed our precious girl for so many years? Late at night, the boy I was switched with climbed into my room and shamelessly declared, "I'm homeless now, you have to take me in." 1. At the beginning of my sophomore year, my roommate dragged me to a party against my will. During the gathering, everyone insisted on playing truth or dare. The most beautiful girl in our department was unluckily chosen, and the crowd egged her on to hit on the hottest guy in the bar. Following the direction of their fingers, I glanced at the opposite booth. Several guys were sitting there, but my eyes instantly locked onto the one right in the middle. Surrounded by beautiful women, he seemed to keep every one of them at arm's length. A cigarette hung loosely from his lips, its smoke curling around his face, making it hard to see his features clearly. Yet his aura alone was enough to make anyone instantly conclude he was undeniably high quality, and probably challenging to win over. The campus belle fidgeted as she stood up, adjusting her hair with a shy expression. "Just so you know, I might not get his number either. After all, anyone can see he's definitely got plenty of suitors." The campus belle's little follower immediately retorted, "What are you talking about? Jessica, you're so pretty, how could you possibly not get it? Stop being so modest." Jessica's smile widened. "Oh Lucy, don't talk nonsense. I'll go then." "Go Jessica, show us how it's done, Jess." Jessica took over a minute to cover the short distance. Finally approaching, she blushed and stammered, "Hello, may I have your phone number please?" Her voice dripped with affected sweetness, while the surrounding boys egged her on like spectators at a show. The male protagonist in question had a cigarette dangling from his lips, his eyes never once glancing Jessica's way as he completely ignored her. As the campus belle who'd often hinted, intentionally or not, at being the heiress of some major corporation, Jessica was accustomed to being fawned over wherever she went. Being cold-shouldered like this was absolutely unprecedented. For a moment she stood there awkwardly, flushing as she explained, "Don't get the wrong idea, classmate. I lost a game of truth or dare. That's why I'm asking for your number. Could you give it to me? Otherwise I'll have to drink as punishment when I go back." The young man arched his eyebrows slightly upon hearing this, his scrutinizing gaze resting on Jessica. All Jessica's earlier bravado instantly evaporated, leaving her feeling increasingly humiliated. With a derisive snort, the boy spoke in a distinctly mocking tone, "A bit too ordinary, really can't give it." Jessica could no longer control her facial expression and stormed back in humiliated anger. The little follower quickly comforted her, "Don't be sad, Jessie. Those guys obviously aren't from our school. They don't even recognize you. How blind can they be? And they looked so rough too, completely not our type at all." Comforting voices rose one after another, and Jessica's expression finally softened a bit. The game continued, and after one round, I became the chosen one. I tossed the playing cards onto the table and leaned back. "I choose truth or dare." Jessica's little sidekick looked at me with schadenfreude. "Chloe, go ask that guy for his number again." The surroundings fell silent for a moment before erupting in applause as others chimed in. "Great idea. So exciting. What the hell, playing games with me?" My roommate was the first to object, slamming the table as she stood up. "What's the meaning of this? Jessica already made a fool of herself once. Now you want our Chloe to go embarrass herself too?" Watching my agitated roommate, I silently pulled her back down into her seat. For no other reason than this, I was afraid she'd start a fight. "What's the matter? Is Chloe not willing to play along?" Or Jessica would go without hesitation. As soon as those words were spoken, many immediately chimed in with agreement. Jessica just went to ask earlier and got a clear refusal. Going to ask again would really be impolite. Given that guy's attitude earlier, she'd only face an even harsher rejection this time. I finally see what's going on. They're trying to embarrass me to cover up what just happened with Jessica. Seeing their smug expressions, my roommate was grinding her teeth in frustration. I clicked my tongue, picked up my drink, and stood up, walking toward the opposite booth under everyone's gaze. The guys around him started jeering even louder at my approach. "Cole, another one? You're really popular tonight, huh? Yeah, our Cole's got charm alright. Just stepping out for some relaxation, and girls are lining up to chat him up." Behind me, Jessica and her crew were waiting to laugh at my expense. Steeling myself, thinking since I'm already here I can't lose face, I raised my glass with faux nonchalance. "Hey handsome, here's your chance to meet me. Fancy a drink? And maybe exchange contacts if you're free?" The moment I said it, I regretted everything. What kind of pickup line was that? Totally botched the delivery, came across so full of myself. I was fully prepared to be rejected, but unexpectedly, the boy's gaze darkened slightly, and to everyone's astonishment, he stubbed out his cigarette, reached out to take the drink from my hand, and downed it in one gulp. A trickle of liquor escaped the corner of his lips, sliding down his throat and disappearing beneath his collar. I swallowed hard. When I asked him to drink with me, I didn't mean for him to use my cup. His friends were even more shocked. Cole, don't you have OCD? Things weren't going as planned, and for a moment I didn't know how to react. The boy seemed to ignore his friend's question, raising his eyes to meet mine. His thin lips curled slightly as he lazily dropped the deep, resonant words, "Your QR code or mine?" As he spoke, his slender fingers took out a phone and placed it before me. Only then did I realize he meant adding contacts. Was it really this simple? I quickly pulled out my phone, scanned mine. Even after returning to our booth, I was still in a daze. It wasn't until I felt my roommate's burning gaze that I realized I'd just scored some serious face. I coughed deliberately a few times. What kind of dare is this? It's so easy. Jessica's lackey asked puzzledly. Why? Even Jessica couldn't get it. How did you manage to? Jessica's face darkened so much it seemed ink was about to drip from it. My roommate said smugly, "Isn't it obvious? It's because our Chloe is pretty. That hot guy obviously likes her." I pressed her down to sit. If she had a tail, it would be wagging up to the sky by now. Enough talk, let's continue the game. The next person chosen was Jessica's little follower, who also chose truth or dare. How amusing. Propping my chin on my hand, I glanced at her and lazily said, "Kiss the sole of the foot of the person to your left for 1 minute." Instantly, the booth fell silent. Jessica, sitting to the little follower's left, looked up at me in disbelief. "I refuse." The little follower trembled as she reached for the liquor glass, but I covered its rim with my hand and raised an eyebrow, drawling leisurely, "Jessica, surely you're not a sore loser." By the time the game ended, it was already dark, and everyone in the nearby booths had left. I stood up with them to settle the bill. Jessica gracefully placed a card on the counter with a refined gesture. "Let me get this." The little follower looked up with admiration. "Jessica, you're so kind, paying again." "It's all right, no one's working yet, and we're all short on living expenses. I'll cover it this time." Jessica was cut off mid-sentence by the clerk at the counter. "I'm sorry, Miss Jessica, but your card has insufficient credit." Jessica blushed from the tips of her ears down to her neck. "Oh, I remember now. It must be because I bought too many bags this month and exceeded my limit," she said. For a moment, everyone exchanged awkward glances. I couldn't help but laugh out loud, and as everyone turned to look at me, I raised a hand apologetically. "Sorry, I just couldn't hold it in." Then, handing over a card to the clerk, I added, "Charge this one, my treat." I ignored Jessica's increasingly resentful gaze, took back the card, and headed out with my roommate. Today had truly been a spectacle. Parked outside the bar was a black motorcycle, and a tall figure lounged lazily against it. The dim streetlight fractured his shadow on the ground, exuding a dangerous aura. A cigarette dangled between his fingers, the ember glaringly bright in the night. A gust of wind tousled his hair slightly, yet it did nothing to diminish his striking looks. Instead, it added a touch of devilish charm. It was the guy from the bar earlier. He hadn't left yet. My sixth sense told me he was somewhat dangerous, so I pretended not to see him and planned to walk straight past him. The guy flicked his cigarette ash and spoke leisurely. "Chloe Miller. Took my number but rejected my friend request. Playing games with me?" He actually knew my full name. How? My eyes met his light brown ones, searching for something unusual in them. I became increasingly convinced this person was dangerous, so I forced calm into my voice and explained, it was just a dare. Everyone was just fooling around. Don't take it seriously." The young man scoffed lightly, tossed his cigarette to the ground and crushed it under his foot, a mischievous grin curling at the corner of his lips. "Very well, Chloe Miller, we'll have to meet again." At the time, I didn't understand the meaning behind his words, thinking he was just joking, until a DNA test report arrived at my home. Mr. Miller, Mr. Miller." The butler Arthur rushed in somewhat flustered, clutching a document, his wig nearly flying off in the commotion. My father, seated on the sofa reading a newspaper, merely glanced up at him, gave the paper a shake, and spoke leisurely. "What's happened to make you so flustered? Has someone snatched that land in the western suburbs?" The butler gasped for breath. "No, it's not about that." Father chuckled. "Then what could be so urgent as to fluster you? Arthur, you ought to be someone who's seen his share of the world." The butler gave me an odd look, visibly struggling. "This matter is difficult to explain. I think you'd better see for yourself, Mr. Miller." Dad rose carelessly, muttering what could possibly be the matter, and casually took the documents from the butler's hands. So I witnessed with my own eyes as Dad's expression shifted from shock to disbelief, then to grief. At that moment, Mom and I were sitting together studying manicures. Seeing old Miller's expression, Mom smoothed her freshly permed curls and rose leisurely. What calamity could possibly warrant that look? Did the family go bankrupt? No matter, my parents still have money, no need to worry. Yet when Mrs. Miller took the document, her face instantly froze, before she slowly collapsed powerless onto the floor. My right eyelid started twitching uncontrollably, and I quickly stood up. "Mom, what's wrong? What happened?" At the sound of my voice, my mother burst into loud sobs as if a floodgate had opened, looking at me through tear-blurred eyes. "Sweetheart, heaven is playing a cruel joke on us." I hastily picked up the 2 documents from the floor, and when I saw their contents, I froze in place too. They were 2 copies of DNA paternity test results. One report indicated a 99.91% probability that I was biologically related to 2 complete strangers. Another appraisal report showed that the likelihood of a man named Ethan Cole being biologically related to the elder Miller and Mrs. Miller was 99.91%. The document slipped from my hands. I couldn't believe it. Could this be a case of switched at birth? A 1 in 100 chance, and I'm the lucky one? What kind of sick joke is this? I refused to believe it. I abruptly grabbed the butler's arm. "Arthur, where did you get this from?" It was given to me by a tall young man, probably about your age, but he was wearing a black baseball cap, so I couldn't see his face clearly. Before Arthur could finish, I dashed out. Maybe that person was still around. But as soon as I stepped outside, I heard someone calling my name with dramatic flair at the gate. "Chloe, my darling Chloe." The security guards were struggling to hold them back. It was a middle-aged couple dressed elegantly. The woman was well-maintained, with skin so delicate it seemed to glow, wearing a graceful silk gown, her hair gathered into a neat bun with an exquisite hairpin. The moment she saw me, the woman's eyes lit up, and upon closer look, they seemed to be brimming with tears. "It really is my daughter, my precious daughter." Suddenly, they broke through the security guard's barricade and rushed to me. Just like those tearful reunion scenes on TV, they clung to me, crying uncontrollably. The middle-aged man in a sharp suit enveloped both the woman and me in a tight embrace, his aged face streaked with tears. "We're reunited. Our family is finally together again." "Me, huh?" A luxury car was parked outside the courtyard gate. From their fragmented words, I gathered they were my biological parents, the Coles, who were somehow involved in the jewelry business. Sounded kind of impressive. The sun was a bit too bright, causing me to squint slightly as my gaze settled on a large tree outside the courtyard. Dense foliage cast a shadow below, where a familiar figure leaned casually against the trunk with a roguish smirk playing on his lips, idly flipping a silver-cased lighter in his hand. With effortless grace, he tossed it skyward only to catch it again, leaving behind nothing but a perfect arc in its wake. White tee paired with a black baseball cap, an outfit that should have looked clean-cut, yet he somehow wore it with an air of effortless rebellion. "It's Ethan Cole. That kid's the other name on the report, Ethan Cole." So that's what he meant outside the bar when he said, "See you again." I meant to call out to him, but as if sensing it, he just glanced up at me and left. 6. In the living room, 2 men and 2 women exchanged awkward glances, forced smiles on their faces, and I was the only connection between them. My biological parents told me that when they were expecting me, they knew it was going to be a girl, but I turned out to be a boy when born. The doctors explained that it might have been due to an irregular fetal position, with the umbilical cord accidentally tucked between the legs, obscuring the gender marker during scans, so I was mistakenly identified as a girl. Back then, they had their hearts set on welcoming a little princess, so they bought everything in pink, even stocking up on supplies up to the age of 10. But reality delivered a little man instead, now a boxer, throwing punches around the house all day, a far cry from the princess they had envisioned. Old Miller and his wife, who had initially expected a baby boy, were completely overjoyed when they ended up with a tiny, milk-scented princess. They were so beside themselves with happiness that they never questioned anything and simply doted on me wholeheartedly. "Actually, your son is quite handsome. He's even a champion boxer who's won gold medals. Why don't you just acknowledge him, Mr. Miller? That way, our precious daughter can reunite with us." Before old Miller could respond, Mrs. Miller couldn't sit still any longer. She personally poured a cup of tea and said, Now, Mr. Cole, what are you saying? That's your son, handsome as he may be. He'll never compare to our sweetheart's beauty." For a while, neither side was willing to give in, and the standoff continued. Old Miller and Mrs. Miller were reluctant to let me go, while my biological parents couldn't wait to send Ethan back. So, with the problem unresolved, my biological parents simply stayed put in the house and refused to leave. Both women insisted on sleeping with me, but I firmly declined. In the middle of the night, a faint sound came from the window. Someone had climbed into my room. I quickly sat up. The man showed no alarm at being discovered, lounging lazily on my sofa instead. "What are you doing here?" Ethan glanced at me, removed his baseball cap, and spoke with a rogue's grin. "I'm homeless now. You'll have to take me in. You did that evaluation report? You knew me all along?" Ethan lazily tapped his fingers against the tabletop, his expression indifferent yet deliberate, not stupid. I rolled my eyes at him. "Thanks, that much was obvious. What's your game, really?" Ethan didn't give me an answer, just curled the corner of his lip. You'll find out tomorrow. Always leaving me hanging, he's really mastered that game. After a brief silence, I couldn't help asking, what exactly did you do? Why are you so unwelcome at the Coles? Ethan raised an eyebrow with that infuriating smirk. What? Feeling sorry for me? Wishful thinking. Number 7. When I woke up the next day, Ethan was already gone. Yawning, I went downstairs to find the 4 of them sitting neatly at the dining table waiting for me. Mrs. Miller took my hand. Sweetheart, your mom stayed up all night thinking. And guess what? She came up with a perfect solution. Even your real mother agreed. A bad premonition suddenly struck me. What solution? Mrs. Miller slapped my hand excitedly and exclaimed, marriage. Just get married. I've seen him. Ethan is incredibly handsome, and he's a boxer too. How cool is that profession? My newly acknowledged birth mother nodded beside me. Exactly. Although Ethan isn't really your equal, this is truly a win-win solution. Chloe, why don't we start with an engagement first? This way, both of us can be your mothers. Doesn't that sound wonderful? What do you think? I was just about to say not wonderful at all when the living room door swung open. I think this method is quite good, perfectly viable, interrupted a pleasant male voice. I turned my head to see Ethan walking in with a steaming bag of donuts, so he'd gone out to get breakfast. I gritted my teeth and said, so that's what you're after? Ethan gently set down the donuts. I should thank Mrs. Miller for being on the same page. Blood really is thicker than water. Family ties truly are remarkable. I had intended to firmly refuse, but under the slightly pleading gazes of the 2 women, I rubbed my chin and conceded, well, I suppose. Before she could finish speaking, Mrs. Miller and my birth mother excitedly grasped each other's hands. In-laws. From now on, we're family. Yes, yes, yes. Sweetheart, our 2 families can take care of you together now. Thank goodness for Ethan. Thanks, but no thanks, I hurriedly interrupted. Let's get this straight first. I'm only agreeing to keep things private for now. I don't want too much attention. A marriage alliance between the top players in real estate and jewelry? That kind of news would definitely make headlines. If word got out, my face would be plastered everywhere, and I could kiss my chance at a normal college life goodbye. Mrs. Camiller and my birth mother looked unconcerned. No problem, no problem. As long as you can get married. As long as you can get married. My gaze slowly met Ethan's. You don't have any objections, do you? Ethan handed me a donut and said lazily, it's up to you. 8. After breakfast, Mrs. Miller insisted that Ethan take me to school, saying it would help us bond. I declined helplessly. No need, I'll drive myself. Mrs. Miller retorted, drive what? Walking together is so romantic. With that, she even took my beloved car keys away. Romantic? Romantic my foot. The whole way there, I kept my head down kicking pebbles and didn't say a word to Ethan. Suddenly, a chilly sensation touched my neck. Ethan, with his slightly calloused hand, grabbed my neck and pulled me to his right side. He's incredibly strong. I rubbed my neck, protesting, what the hell? With both hands in his pockets, Ethan gave me a light glance. Lost in thought while walking by the roadside? Afraid the cars won't kill you? Then keep your hands to yourself. I only agreed to our engagement verbally. Don't think we're settled just like that. Ethan raised an eyebrow and leaned slightly closer to me. What? Not into me? I scoffed. As if I'd be interested in your scrawny. Before I could finish, my fingers betrayed me with involuntary awe at the sensation beneath them. Biceps, abs, you. Ethan grabbed my hand and placed it directly on his arm and abdomen. Even through his clothes, I could clearly feel the firmness of his muscles and abs. Ethan's hands were huge compared to mine. My hand looked pitifully small in comparison. His veins were slightly raised, and I could almost feel the pulse throbbing through them. Damn, that's kind of sexy. I murmured, oh right, you're a boxer. Your body's amazing. Perhaps amused by my reaction, Ethan chuckled lightly and said with playful arrogance, satisfied? Consider it an early perk. The atmosphere turned suggestive. What were we doing out in public? Simply scandalous, frivolous. Well, my impression of him just worsened. Ethan, someone as handsome as you must have plenty of admirers. You could have anyone, so why insist on an engagement with me? What exactly are you after? I pleaded earnestly, but Ethan merely curved his lips and replied coolly, isn't it obvious? I'm after you. I don't understand. Why is this? We didn't even know each other before. We're still strangers. Isn't judging purely by appearances too reckless? Ethan's light brown eyes locked onto mine. Didn't know each other? How can you be so sure? I even know that on your middle school graduation day, you received a love letter from some junior under the third big tree by your school gate and thanked them with a smile. Still think we're strangers? Chloe Miller, I know you better than anyone. Don't give me that we're not close nonsense. I stepped back in shock. This was terrifying. Ethan had dug up all these details about me. What a frightening man. Putting on a brave face, I retorted, but you're too late. My heart already belongs to someone else. Ethan froze for a moment, his handsome face darkening as he ground his teeth and demanded, who is it? Which man is it now? I wanted to say the name, but all I knew was the person's nickname, and it was particularly embarrassing to mention. Who cares who he is? Anyway, he's completely different from you. A chubby little guy, really adorable. With that, I started walking away because Ethan's expression had become truly terrifying. I barely took a step when Ethan yanked my hand back, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. Weren't you into skinny guys? Since when do you like chubby ones? You're so fickle. Me? 9. Ethan stormed off in anger. Didn't even set foot near my school's doorstep, yet kept insisting he'd walk me back. To this day, I still don't understand why he got angry. As he left, he tossed out a sentence, "I'll think of another way." Left alone, I stood bewildered in the wind. Over the next few days, Ethan disappeared without a word. As for me, I carried on with my usual amusements, brushing off his warnings without a second thought. Until I ran into him at the spot only I and that chubby little kid knew about. I finally saw through his disguise. That day, he stood there with a lollipop in his mouth, hands in pockets, staring blankly at the chalk-covered wall. This was our secret hideout known only to me and that little chubby boy. The moment I saw him there, everything clicked. So all this time he'd been playing me. I tentatively called out, "Ethan?" His body stiffened instantly, turning slowly with deliberate movements. When he saw it was me, he already showed signs of preparing to flee. Without thinking further, I shouted at him, "Danny." Panic flashed in his eyes as he attempted to explain, "I'm not Danny. How could I possibly be Danny?" But his crimson red ears gave him away. I scoffed, vanishing without a word for years and now returning dozens of pounds thinner. Quite the transformation, huh? DNA tests, engagement, and still acting all high and mighty? What? Are you starring in some drama? Now that the chubby kid's turned handsome, you pulled a stunt. Must be thrilled with yourself, aren't you? Ethan murmured. I wasn't being that arrogant. The cocky demeanor he'd worn when we first met days ago was gone, every trace of mischief carefully tucked away. Fury rose in me. Fine, consider my past sincerity wasted on a dog. I turned to leave without another word, but the moment I took a step, his hand caught mine. Head bowed in surrender. His voice was barely audible. I'm sorry, don't be angry. I shouldn't have pretended to be cool. I thought you liked that type. Me, 10. Ethan looked like a wounded big dog, which made half of my anger dissipate. I was just about to say something when a hoarse, unpleasant voice, like someone clearing phlegm from their throat, cut in from the alley entrance, clearly a teenage boy going through puberty. Well, who do we have here? Ethan and I turned our heads simultaneously to see 3 thuggish-looking punks standing at the alley entrance, their hostile intentions obvious. Ethan's whole demeanor instantly turned sharp as he pulled me behind him, his tone cool and detached. Don't you already know who I am? The punk looked irritated. The fuck are you? I also looked curiously at Ethan, eagerly awaiting his answer. Nonchalantly, he uttered 3 words, your dad. I nearly choked on my breath. Damn, he's gotten cocky. Danny had changed. He had truly changed. He was playing some next-level game here. The punks at the alley entrance turned livid. You messing with us? Cut the crap. Hand over all your cash. None of that card bullshit. Leave your phone too. Our school bans devices. Ethan stuffed his hands in his pockets, cracked his neck, and sneered. Just you guys? Come at me all together then. I'll even fight one-handed, if. Before Ethan could finish his sentence, I smacked the back of his head. Clutching his head, he turned to gaze at me in confusion. What was that for? You still want to fight? Ethan's voice carried a tinge of grievance, but they started it. Iron not tempered into steel disappoints me. I snapped. Aren't you supposed to be a boxer? Don't you want to compete if you keep getting into fights? What about them? I tossed my bag into his arms, rolled up my sleeves, and grinned wildly at the 3 punks blocking the alley. Hold this for me. Let me teach them just how cruel society can be. A few minutes later, the punks were groaning on the ground, clutching their heads and feet. None of them could stand. I dusted them off kindly. Sweethearts, I was already out here making a name for myself while you were still in kindergarten. Remember this lesson. Pick on someone your own size next time, or you'll be eating prison food. With a light flick of my hand, I extended my index finger toward the corner and said, stand right there and loudly recite, study hard, improve every day 100 times. Understood, little brothers? The hooligans were stunned into silence and didn't respond. Understood? I raised my voice. The hooligans immediately began chanting with quivering voices. Study hard, improve every day. Suppressing my laughter, I pulled Ethan out of the alley. He straightened out my slightly wrinkled clothes for me. I'd forgotten how capable you are. I raised my head to meet his gaze. Do you still remember how I used to teach you like this when you were little? 11 When I was a child, Mrs. Miller believed I was the most beautiful child in the world. Fearing I might be bullied, she hired a private taekwondo coach for me at a very young age. My acquaintance with Danny, no, it should be said, my acquaintance with Ethan, began in elementary school. It was at a small park where 2 groups were tensely confronting each other over its ownership. A chubby kid charged ahead, dared to challenge me? Haven't you heard of my name? His childish voice tried too hard to sound fierce. I slightly raised my eyelids, standing at the front of our group with my backpack slung over my shoulder. And who exactly are you? The pudgy boy puffed out his chest. The boss of second elementary. I chuckled. Oh, what a coincidence. I'm the boss of first elementary. That quarrel ended with little Ethan's glorious defeat. From that day on, for some inexplicable reason, he became my little shadow, following me throughout junior high. On the day of our junior high graduation, I asked little Ethan to wait for me at his school gate, but a handsome boy intercepted me on my way there. He shyly handed me a love letter. Not wanting to crush his feelings, I accepted it with a simple thank you. By the time I finished dealing with that matter and went looking for Ethan, he was already gone from school. He didn't show up again for the longest time after that. I thought about visiting his home, but upon reflection, I realized I knew nothing about him except that his name was Danny. And so that day, Danny vanished from my youth. I no longer had my little shadow. So when a thinner Ethan, a changed Ethan, stood before me again, I didn't recognize him. I just thought he was a somewhat cocky little hottie with decent looks. But I never expected him to be Danny, who works quietly towards great deeds. Once Ethan's disguise was uncovered, we instantly became familiar with each other. He walked me back to the Miller residence. When we reached the courtyard gate, Ethan bent down to gently help me put on my backpack, then placed a handful of candies in my palm. This was his childhood habit of apologizing. Was that paternity test real or fake? I had held it in all the way and couldn't help but blurt it out. Ethan replied very seriously, real. I gasped. How did you find out? I actually figured it out in middle school. You look just like the two members of the Cole family, and I look just like Mrs. Miller. Then why didn't you say anything back then? Ethan avoided my gaze, not daring to look at me. I had my own plans. So your plan is to get engaged to me? Would you let me be your boyfriend then? Ethan nervously asked me. Don't get ahead of yourself. Of course not. Ethan said dejectedly. Why not? Is it because I turned skinny again? No, it's because you smoke. I can't stand the smell. It was just a random excuse I made up on the spot, but Ethan actually took it seriously. He tugged at his hair and awkwardly explained, I don't smoke. This was just for show. That time at the bar when I met you, I was pretending to smoke, just trying to catch your attention. And why did you think that would catch my attention? They say guys who smoke look kinda cool. I couldn't help but laugh. Nonsense. Staying healthy matters most. Well, setting that aside, then, I thought about it. It wasn't the right time yet. Still no. Ethan reached up to smooth my hair. Alright, I'll try even harder. You'd better give it your best shot then, I said while dashing through the courtyard gate, though my lips betrayed me by curling upward uncontrollably. 13, I'd missed several years with Ethan, years during which I knew nothing of what he'd experienced. So upon returning to school, I scoured the internet to desperately fill in the gaps about him. I never expected him to be quite this famous, with fans numbering in the low hundreds of thousands, all because of his strikingly handsome face. But those unfamiliar with boxing still wouldn't know him, which explains why I didn't recognize him at first. People say he's the best looking among boxing athletes, and the most skilled boxer among the good-looking ones. One punch from him could probably knock anyone out. Just as I was getting really into watching, my roommate rushed in frantically. Chloe, that Jessica is up to her old tricks again. At the time, I was still watching Ethan's competition videos, completely absorbed in his alternative charm. Hearing that name suddenly, I couldn't quite place it. Who? Which Jessica are we talking about? The department beauty queen. The one from the bar last time. I tried to recall. There was indeed such a person. And if it weren't for her, Ethan and I might never have met. What's up with her? You haven't seen the school gossip blog? It's everywhere. They say her family has connections with the Cole Group, and she might marry the youngest heir of the Cole family. The Cole Group. The Cole Group. Do you even know what the Cole Group does? It's the absolute leader in the entire jewelry industry. I knew better than anyone else. They were my biological parents. Who spread this? Jessica herself did. She's totally basking in the attention now. People fawning over her could practically circle the school. Besides, her family was already in the jewelry business, and with this connection, their status has skyrocketed. Actually, this doesn't concern us at all, but isn't her birthday coming up soon? She said she wanted to treat everyone to dinner and then go to KTV. She specifically mentioned your name on her blog, insisting you must come. Probably because she couldn't get your number last time and lost face. Now she wants to regain it through you. Chloe, maybe we should just skip it, like we didn't see the invitation. Now that she's connected with the Cole Group, we can't afford to offend her either. Not going? I sneered. How could I not go? I have no choice but to go. A clown is always a clown. My roommate looked utterly bewildered. Chloe, what on earth do you mean by that? I curled my lips into a smile. Nothing much, just wait and see the show. I'll make them eat their words. 14. At the KTV, Jessica was surrounded by admirers like the moon among stars, wearing a reserved smile on her face. Oh my God, Jessica, I had no idea your family background was so impressive. To think you're actually going to marry into the Cole Group. Jessica smiled coyly, Oh, it's not that great yet. Nothing's been finalized, but it probably shouldn't be long now. You know how it is. My family deals in jewelry and such, so we naturally bump into Mr. Cole and Ethan at various banquets and events. Familiarity just grew from there. I heard Jessica's fiancé is actually a boxer. Apparently he's incredibly skilled, championship material kind of skilled. The smug satisfaction in Jessica's eyes grew increasingly evident, though she still pretended to be modest. She hesitated slightly before speaking. Ethan is really amazing. There's this major competition coming up that he's going to participate in, the kind where he could win the championship. I haven't dared to disturb him lately, afraid it might interfere with his training. Oh wow, a championship. Does that mean he could get a gold belt? Jessica, can you take photos for us when the time comes? Jessica nodded. Sure, I'll just let Ethan know when it happens. My roommate and I sat silently in the corner, watching Jessica perform her act with cold detachment. Suddenly Jessica called my name. Is Chloe here? Has she arrived? Then she deliberately acted like she couldn't see me and looked around everywhere. I let out a laugh and spoke coldly. Your big sister is right here. Can't you see such a huge person? Jessica's expression turned awkward but soon resumed her smile. Chloe, you're so mean. I was just concerned about whether you'd come. By the way, I wanted to explain. That day at the bar when I asked that guy for his number, I deliberately told him not to give it to you. You know I'm about to get engaged to the Cole family's young master, right? I was afraid Ethan might get angry, so I purposely made sure he wouldn't give you his number. Heh, I couldn't help but laugh. Oh, is that so? I thought it was because you're so ugly he wasn't interested in you at all. Jessica's expression almost cracked. Before she could speak, her lackey couldn't hold back. How dare you talk like that? How could anyone possibly look down on our Jessica? I think you're just jealous. Someone of your status probably couldn't even catch a glimpse of Master Cole in your lifetime. Hearing this, I stared coldly at them as if watching buffoons. Just as I was about to decisively put them in their place, the door of the KTV private room swung open, revealing a familiar figure, 180 centimeters tall, with a straight and commanding posture. His well-defined jawline stood out strikingly, and his slightly undone collar revealed tantalizing collarbones. It was Ethan. The entire room fell instinctively silent at his arrival. The aura of authority radiating from him was overwhelming. A chilling aura surrounded him, giving off an unapproachable vibe. His expression was icy, but the moment his gaze landed on me, all that coldness melted away, revealing warmth hidden in his eyes. Chloe, he called softly. I looked at him in surprise. What brings you here? Ethan's deep voice resonated. I heard you were here, so I came to take you home. Perfect timing. Now whose face is going to sting more? Sure enough, someone already piped up. And who are you? I glanced at Jessica and, seeing that she still hadn't realized her current situation, thoughtfully explained to everyone. He's the young Master Cole you've been talking about. You know, that incredibly skilled boxer. Jessica should recognize him, right? Only then did Jessica get a bad premonition. What did you say? I pointed at Jessica and asked Ethan, do you know her? Ethan barely lifted his eyelids to give her a cold glance before indifferently replying, no, I don't. Oh, you don't know? But she said her family was going to marry into the Cole group? Ethan slightly furrowed his brows, sizing up Jessica from head to toe, his voice carrying a chill. The Cole family has only ever had a marriage alliance with the Millers. Our threshold isn't something just any minor household can climb over. My fiancé is Chloe, and no one else. Chloe is young Master Cole's fiancé? The crowd couldn't believe what they were hearing. Murmurs rose and fell. Wait, the Millers? Which Miller family? My roommate suddenly exclaimed in disbelief. Chloe, don't tell me your family is in real estate? Yeah, I replied nonchalantly. My roommate's eyes widened in shock. Oh my God. It's really the Miller Group. So you're actually the heiress of the Miller Group? I smiled and nodded. My roommate patted her face as if trying to wake herself up. So low-key. To think a rich heiress was right beside me all along. I knew your last name was Miller, but I never connected it to the Miller Group. Chloe, I want to be your follower. You're way too understated. If I were you, I'd paste my trust fund statements on my forehead so everyone would know. I laughed and deflected. Don't be ridiculous. Jessica still refused to believe it and made one last desperate attempt. Chloe, I know you're jealous of me, but no matter how jealous you are, you can't just grab some random guy to impersonate someone. Isn't this the same guy who asked for your number at the bar last time? There's no way he could be Cole Young Master. The little sidekick beside him jumped up excitedly. Right. I still remember this guy, the one from the bar last time. Chloe must be insanely jealous to impersonate the Miller family's heiress? Just because you share the same last name, you think you can claim ties to the Miller Group? How could you possibly be a Miller? You've never mentioned it before. How do you plan to prove what you're saying is true? Ethan's tone dripped with sarcasm. Truly, one won't stop until they hit the wall. With that, he pulled out his phone and made a call, uttering coldly, come here. A minute later, the private room door swung open again. A middle-aged man with a manager's badge pinned to his chest rushed in, wiping sweat from his brow. followed by a group of staff members. Pushing the door open, the middle-aged man's gaze swept past the others as he hurried straight toward me and Ethan with his employees in tow. With respectful deference, he said, "I had no idea young Master Cole and Miss Miller were gracing our establishment. It was our negligence not to come forward sooner." Ethan casually responded with a vague while I waved it off, saying it was fine. We hadn't intended to make a scene in the first place. Yet the middle-aged man didn't even dare wipe his sweat, bowing repeatedly in apology. "Failing to serve you properly was entirely our failing. To make amends, all purchases by Miss Miller's friends today will be on the house. Moreover, certain individuals will be permanently blacklisted from ever entering our establishment again." The manager's words left everyone present stunned into silence. A hanger-on murmured dazedly, "If everything Jessica said was a lie, then what's real? What even is real?" Jessica's face darkened, her eyes filled with disbelief. A closer look might reveal the glimmer of tears. "Chloe, I knew you had ill intentions. Always plotting against me, weren't you? I never should have invited you to my birthday party. I'm such a fool. Let me tell you, I'm not afraid of you. All you've got is money, flaunting your looks just to get your way. And now, look, everyone's revolving around you. Happy now, aren't you?" I looked at him with the face of one regarding a fool. This was the most absurd joke I'd ever heard. "Sorry, but you're overthinking it. You're the most transparently foolish person I've ever met. Putting effort into dealing with you would frankly feel beneath me. Relax and broaden your perspective. Consider this possibility. Maybe I never even spared you a single glance." Jessica was about to argue further when I walked over and gently pressed my index finger to her lips. "Shoo, keep your little mouth shut and play your princess role nicely. Don't make me angry, or the consequences will be severe. I hear your family sells jewelry? What a coincidence. My boyfriend's family happens to dominate the jewelry industry. You wouldn't want your supply chain cut off now, would you?" Ethan took my bag from my best friend beside me, his tone dripping with undisguised affection. "Chloe, let's go home." I turned back, coming. As I walked out of the private room, a wave of murmurs followed me. So Chloe was the genuine socialite all along. Everything she said is true. That Ethan is really gorgeous. No wonder he's the Cole family's young master. His aura screams extraordinary. Jessica might be the biggest joke I've ever seen, posing as the Cole heir's fiancée when she didn't even know what the young master looks like. How embarrassing. With Ethan's arm linked in mine, I stepped out of the private room in high spirits. I have to admit, this feeling was genuinely exhilarating. 16. After leaving the KTV, Ethan and I walked down the street in comfortable silence. The night breeze brushed against our faces, carrying a hint of lingering coolness. "What brought you here all of a sudden?" I asked softly. Ethan smiled lightly. "Came to have your back." I couldn't help but chuckle. "What a coincidence." Ethan replied without hesitation, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "It's not coincidence. You needed me, so I came. Jessica told me you have a very important competition coming up. Are you confident?" Ethan answered quietly, "No, not really." I stopped and asked him, "Dare to make a bet with me?" "What's the bet?" Ethan's tone was casual, lazy, and indifferent. "A bet on whether you can win the match." "What if I win?" "If you win, I'll be your girlfriend." Ethan paused mid-step, turned slightly, and looked down to meet my gaze, his eyes seemingly struggling to suppress emotions. "Chloe Miller, you better mean it, or I might actually take it seriously." My eyes sparkled. "I always keep my word. Shall we pinky swear?" Ethan's eyes darkened slightly as his voice became low and gravelly. "Pinky promise." With careful solemnity, he hooked his little finger around mine. "A promise is a promise." Chapter 17. The Grand Finals arena pulsed with energy as this global gathering of boxing elite captured the full attention of all media outlets. Under the flickering spotlights of the boxing ring, Ethan's handsome features illuminated the television screens. I watched him on the field and made up my mind, pulling out my phone to call old Miller. 1 minute after hanging up, both the Miller Group and Cole Group's official websites simultaneously announced the engagement between the Miller family's heiress and the Cole family's young heir, openly cheering for Ethan on their official platforms. Within moments, the name Ethan surged to the top of online trending charts, shocking netizens out of their lurking silence. The handsome man pairing with a stunning woman, with the latter using an official corporate platform to fiercely support her boyfriend mid-competition, left countless netizens stunned. People exclaimed in awe, "This is straight out of a novel." Even those who don't follow boxing began watching the match. I had pushed this boxing event's popularity to unprecedented heights. When the match finally concluded, Ethan lived up to expectations as the youngest boxer to step onto the podium and claim his Intercontinental Gold Belt. The spotlight converged on him, and Ethan grinned broadly at the camera. A reporter thrust a microphone toward him. "Ethan Cole, you were incredible. We witnessed an amazing match." The audience must be wondering, with such a short career, how have you achieved such remarkable success? Have you ever lost a match? Ethan smiled faintly upon hearing this. "I've lost, but only to one person. The reporter asked curiously, "Who was it?" Ethan's gaze casually drifted into the distance, as if carefully recalling, "A little girl. It happened back in elementary school." The reporter's eyes lit up, keenly sensing a potential news angle. That person must be pretty important to Player Cole, otherwise you wouldn't still remember it now. Ethan had no idea what was happening online at that time, let alone that his words had once again set the internet ablaze. When he mentioned me, his eyes and brows unconsciously softened. The Ethan who had just thrown punches decisively was now carefully weighing his words. He looked into the camera as if certain I was watching. The surroundings held their breath, waiting for his answer. Then Ethan spoke softly, "She's been someone extraordinarily important to me since our school days, my only defeat, and one I accept willingly." I thought he had disappeared. Little did I know he would make such a powerful comeback. Time rewinds to an afternoon during our school days, when the sun was scorching and cicadas were straining to sing their summer song. On the tree-shaded path, I walked briskly ahead in my school uniform, my high ponytail swaying gracefully in the air with each step. Behind me trailed a chubby boy, carefully handling a melting ice cream cone. After much deliberation, the young boy nervously spoke up, "Chloe, it's so hot today. Would you like some ice cream?" I turned around and pulled out a tissue to wipe his sweat. "Danny, you don't need to run so far to buy me ice cream on such hot days." The cicadas' chirping grew louder, drowning out the boy's pounding heartbeat. Yet that summer was sung into everyone's memory by their cries. People say those cicadas were voicing a coward's love with all their hearts. The end. "Here's a little Easter egg," campus belle Jessica wound her way through to the innermost private room. Pushing open the door, she respectfully greeted the man playing pool inside. "Good evening, young Master Cole." Ethan slightly crouched, his wrist flush against the table as he gently tapped the cue ball with the tip of his stick, sending it rolling forward to collide with other balls. With practiced ease, Ethan smoothly straightened up, completing the fluid sequence of movements. With a slight tilt of his chin toward Jessica, a cool voice sounded, a murmured hum accompanying the sound of the ball sinking into the pocket. Jessica wore an ingratiating smile. "Young Master Cole, have you been satisfied with everything I've done for you?" I practically played my true self. Ethan sat on the couch, casually accepting a drink handed to him by someone nearby. He smiled faintly and uttered a few words, "Not bad." Jessica pushed her luck, cautiously venturing, "That night at the bar, for the sake of your plan, I let that guy next to me take liberties with my feet. Just thinking about it now still makes me feel filthy." Ethan curled his lips in a carefree manner. "Whatever you want, just tell my assistant. It's what you deserve." Jessica's eyes lit up. "Thank you, Master Cole. May you achieve all your wishes and win the young mistress's heart soon." Ethan slightly raised his glass before tilting his head back to drain it in one gulp. "I'll take that as a blessing." The end.